And it's been another week. Toward the end of the year, Eliza sometimes asks me, hey, should we have a Pops Christmas party? And I go, no. And then we do.
Technically it's a holiday party.
Oh, I'm sorry, a Pops holiday party. And so we did. We all got together, we had some good food, good conversations. I always feel like in a party environment, it's hard for me to focus very well. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I put together a reel of outtakes from every episode over the last 7 years, and we all kind of gathered around at one point and watched a bunch of them, and then it was just more like eating and drinking and talking and hanging out. And then I decided to pull aside a bunch of people who had been involved in a lot of the episodes of Pops and ask them some questions. We started shooting Pops in the beginning of 2009. In another couple months, it will have been 7 years since we started. Some of you mentioned in the comments of last week's update that Jake's feeling a little nostalgic now that we're lining up toward the end here, and that is true. So I thought, let's ask the people who have been around, involved in a lot of the episodes, some of their experience of it. I said a lot of the episodes, and you'll see Rich in there, the guy who plays Elson, you'll like a lot of the episodes, but he's one of the first people I ever talked to about Pops when we were working in a video store. He was managing the video store, I was working as an employee there, and I actually wrote most of episode 1 in that video store. So Rich has been around since the very beginning. Let's take a look at that.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Ah! Hi. Hi. Hey, how are you? Hey. Is that Jake? Taco. Wow. This is so wide. How much can you see?
What was your favorite moment on a Pop set?
I love fighting.
One more.
Fight choreography, like out in the park, and me and Jonas were fighting. That was awesome.
But when it comes to fighting, what is your personal problem?
Cat punches. I can demonstrate.
Yeah.
Normally, you know, you punch regular. A kitten punch is like this. You kitten punch. And every time we'd have to be like, no kitten punches.
Probably when I got electrocuted for the first time.
The scene where I yell at you outside that church, and that means that I cannot even trust myself. Outside the superhero meet and greet, I think that is my personal favorite piece of acting from myself.
We were shooting at my house, and it was during the Keeper of the Secrets. When he goes to Craig, shh. That moment, it was great.
When I was in the show.
I think I saw your license plate. It's just right.
Do not tell me. I'll find it. What I liked about it was the idea that I thought maybe my character would ever come back. Even though I was like, yeah, the new actor team is going to be introduced to the series. So I was like, this is our beginning. It turned out differently than I thought it would.
With Jonas and Electricon, they were testing out their powers, and they were training.
Yes!
That was just a fun shoot day. I believe we watched Crank before we shot that scene. I don't know why. Oh, I do know. We were originally going to shoot that scene on the top of a Best Buy parking garage. We got kicked out of there promptly, and we weren't really sure if we could shoot that day. So instead, we got a few beers, hung out at my place. We watched Crank. Finally, we found a location. I think we shot that day, right? Yeah?
Episode 2, the actual Taco Maniac thing. Taco! Because I wasn't really wearing anything other than the robe, so I was mostly naked on 18th Street. There was at least 20 people watching us, you know, and applauding, like stopped in their cars and wanted to take pictures.
We're just kind of watching the minutia. Everyone knows exactly what to do. Like in the corner, watching everything. I'm like, it's like a well-oiled machine.
China, describe to me your super amazing appearance in the Platoon of Power Squadron.
Wow, guys, okay, so it was critical to the plot. I needed something from the store, and I bought it with money, and then I turned and left. I thought that I would still be in the shot if I just like stopped right outside of the door. Middle of winter, it was really cold, and I just like started walking down the street to like try to get out of the shot, and then someone came and got me, and they were like, no, you can just stop outside.
Please describe to me, Jessica, your memories of being on Pops Episode 4.
It was dark. It was a very dark night, and I was in an alley, and a man robbed me.
Back when we first started the show, I said I had a part for you. How long did it take to get to that part?
So I actually remember this still. We hadn't started shooting the first episode yet, and we were on Logan Boulevard in front of the Pops first apartment, and I was emptying my car of some props and stuff. Jake was like, yeah, it was great. Oh, by the way, like I got a role for you later on, like in the series. It's probably gonna be around episode 5. I'm like, awesome. And like 7 years later, finally, Jake was like, oh, you're finally in. I'm like, great. I don't have any lines. And I was like, whoa, Jake, hold on. 7 years ago, you said you had a part for me, and I'm just like in just a flashback sequence of no lines. I mean, what the hell?
David, I'm pretty sure your huge monologue was in that first draft.
And it might have been the first draft, but before that, you're like, oh no, you don't have any lines.
Oh yeah, no.
When we talked about it, that happened in a conversation. I was like, no, I'm gonna have lines.
As the only other person who has written an episode of Pops, what was the experience like?
Oh, I thought it was good. We were very open to feedback from one another, so I felt like it actually really well. Like you were more receptive to my ideas than I thought you were going to be.
What was it like seeing then the pages that you had written come to life on set?
It was a little bit different than most writers because it's like, okay, they write the script, they hand it in. I was still part of the crew, so I got to see like every scene sort of develop. And I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but I know there was a couple times where it was hard for me to not give my input on set. Like I was trying to just rehash what you had already said to the actors, but I know it got a little bit like you had to pull me aside once and be like, hey, I don't want you to give notes to the actors anymore.
So much of stuff is coming out tonight.
Yeah.
What was your least favorite moment on a Pop set?
Like alphabetically, chronologically.
Probably where I blew up at you in the middle of the night when we were shooting at the McGarrigles. But it was freezing rain and I realized I had really hurt your feelings and I should have just shut up.
When I have to crawl on the ground or like do the split shots and like throw myself places, it's fun, but it's taxing.
My least favorite moment on a Pop set was when you promised to write me into another, like the next episode, and then you didn't.
You had that like crane shot. It kept not working out. Not all of the parts were working out right at the exact same time. And it took forever. And I was just sitting in a chair, reading a book, waiting to go home.
It was 2011. We were shooting outside of someone's house at night. It was snowing outside. Jake scheduled a scene that was gonna go like way too long. It should have been over 2 different nights. And I just remember being like 12:30 at night, it was snowing, and we were all miserable. Some things were said. Jake got mad at one point and yelled at us. That's cool.
That is the second time this has come up in the hot seat.
No, well, there's been plenty of nights where we've been cold and miserable.
Sometimes it gets cold, and I'm not into that.
There's been a lot of moments where it's been really cold. It was so freaking cold. And I'm like, what am I getting myself into?
Shooting outside the door of your apartment.
That's why I said scene. They're called
One more time, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I caught Brian dancing.
Well below 32 degrees. I was trying to get through this as quickly as possible. I was able to get the words out properly and in the right order, and so we had to kind of retake. And I was like, oh, jeez.
I know exactly what it is. I forget which episode. Donald's head exploded. Everyone's freaking out, sitting on the floor. This stationary shot where I was booming, microphone, took 37 takes?
Not being evil.
No.
No. It's like Donald.
No. You did that thing.
For real, not being evil.
It took forever. And we were just so done.
The shooting of the scene where I explained to Estelle that we were meant for each other in the alleyway. Is there something going on with you and Gabe? I was terribly, terribly sick that day.
Oh my god, he was so sick.
I was afraid to say anything. I'm still really stuffed up. I was in the heart of a terrible cold.
And he kept handing me like
snot running down my face.
Like toilet paper and stuff to go throw away.
I was in pain. And it was a very emotional scene. It was probably the most emotional scene that Donald has.
Each episode would come out, I knew that you were making them. I hear about everybody making this show and not being called back for the mediocrity. I guess so. It's like several least favorite moments, each one kind of darker than the next.
The warehouse. Not because I had a problem with any of the people who were there. It's just the fact there was so much mold in the warehouse. I could feel myself just like my throat closing up. It was awesome.
Electricon and Damon, and they were crawling around in the alley, and we were on the dolly, we were moving around, and it was so cold and it was so windy. My eyes were tearing up because of the wind. I couldn't do anything about it because I was just trying to keep it together and hold the camera steady and that was pretty unpleasant.
It was a really fun night. And it was really fun to kind of look back on all of these years of doing this show. Once again, Eliza was right. It's a lot of fun to have a Pops holiday party. I always get a little stressed out thinking about, and I don't even have to do anything except stand by Eliza while she makes decisions. But planning a party seems a lot like planning for production. And so I always get a little... Those of you who have been around with us since the beginning, like many of these folks, thanks for sticking it out. I forgot to mention 2 things while I was on my run. I remembered 2 more things. One, since I wanted to be doing a time-lapse of the party with one GoPro and interviewing everybody about the reminiscences with my other GoPro, I asked David if he would bring back one of my GoPros because the Good Stuff borrowed it for this one playlist that they're doing. And so I was like, David, could you make sure the card is ready to go and charge the GoPro? And when I looked at the footage today, this was on it. And also, since we've been talking about all of our memories of Pops this week, I had a question for you guys. What's your favorite memory of watching a Pops episode? Is it in your room with friends, streaming on your TV? Was there a specific episode that was your favorite to watch in the environment that you watched it in? I'm just curious. If you have one, just let me know in the comments since we're all sharing Pops memories this week. Thank you guys so much for joining me again this week, and that's the Pops logo. You guys take it easy.